I remember when Rude
believe
came
that.
to WCW, and Rude did that. I watched Rude and Sting go around the horn, and they had really like Steve and Rick had really good chemistry, and they did that. They did the ha ha and all this shit. And, Rick would always do this one spot where he was waiting for he would do a clothesline spot with Sting on the floor, and then there'd be another thing. He would go around the corner and he would wait, and the referee would tap him, and he'd turn around and push the referee out of the way. In the meantime, Sting would crawl around that corner behind him and come behind him, and he'd tap him again, and he'd just push him away, and he'd be like cranking his arm, like come around this corner, I'm going to clothesline you, and then finally, he'd tap him, and you'd see him go like, fucking what? And he'd turn around, and there'd be that moment. It'd be that super slow turn, because as he slowly turned, the crowd would start to sell, and he'd be like, and you see him make that face like, and he'd turn around, and there'd be Sting, and Sting would rah, do the crab, and bang, 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 and he'd get him, and Steve would immediately get him in the ring, and then he'd get Rude running and clothesline, ass bump. Then he'd sell out on the floor, and then Sting would, have his moment, whether you go on the second rope, whatever you do, and you would just see that whole, the Shakespeare to the athleticism to fucking the pop to, and then Rude would come in, cut his ass off, snag a fucking
Blow a snot.
yeah, blow a
Yeah.
snot in the middle of Sting's back. The people would be white hot, and you'd go again. And it was just like you watch that, and you'd be like, got it. I watched Jake one night in Tallahassee. He was working at Nikita Koloff, and Jake had just came into WCW, and Nikita was kind of being difficult and kind of working stiff. So finally, Jake was always way bigger than people thought he was. You know, Jake's like 6'6", 275, and he's just starts feeding Nikita for slams, and he just slam him and just get right up, slam, and after about the 12th one, Nikita can barely pick him up, and now at that point it's just like, Jake could thumb him in the eye and just pick him apart, and he needed oxygen, and Jake wouldn't give it to him, and Jake would just, I mean, just take us. It was just a classic on not only psychology but like knowing exactly how to expose somebody being out there. And that's another thing, man. It's just like if you know how to expose somebody and that person's being difficult, man, that could be a long night for that other person. And Jake, I watched Jake do that from behind the curtain that night. Yeah, he came in the back. We were driving together at that time because to me, like anytime a New York guy came into WCW, man, I picked their brain. I got with Rude, I got with Jake, and I picked their brain. And I said, man, he goes, yeah, he goes, hey, you watch tomorrow night and see if he stiffs me on those early clotheslines. So
You gotta you gotta know the whole game. You gotta know the whole game.
absolutely, those are two masters right there,
Jake and
Jake and Rude. Yeah,
Road,
absolutely.
yeah. Uh, Kev, another thing you're knowledgeable about is life, and that's why in Dear Sexy we present you with two letters actually written to Dear Abby to see if it was you giving the advice.
We
How
just
you would
talked about we just
proceed.
talked about wrestling.
What's that?
We just talked about wrestling.
I know. I know. There goes
Mo-
the neighborhood.